page 16 of the speech of Mr. President. And I read, the challenges of 1956 are certainly not the challenges of 2014, and definitely not the challenges that the nation will face in years to come. It makes sense, therefore, that as the challenges before us evolve, we must be constant and proactive in our search for fresh solutions. Firstly, Mr. President and Mr. Chairman, I agree with that statement. And like it says, I'd like to say that the challenges that faced us in 1976 that led to the Aguda report on the creation of the Federal Capital Territory is certainly different from the challenges we face today in the Federal Capital Territory. Permit me to say that at this conference, it's important that the issue of the Aguda report be tabled for us to reconsider so that we can begin to look at the issues properly. Over the years, the status of Abuja on the resettlement of the indigents have been beclouded. This has resulted in conflicts between the MFCT, which is the ministry, the FCDA, and the indigents of the Federal Capital Territory. Indirectly, it has also resulted into underdevelopment that we witness at the area council areas. There are, if I must say, there are very little or no industries. There are teeming youths in the area who are poorly educated, unemployed, and where gradually the citizenries of these places will wake up in the morning and find that their lands have disappeared.
Distinguished Senator.
I'm going to round up. There's a lot to say, but I think we should put that FCT specially on the platform for us collectively to decide which way forward. Are they part of Nigeria, and to what extent are they North Central FCT? Justice must be done to protect them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Honorable George Anibo. Honorable George. Honorable George Anibo? No. Senator Iyabo Anisunlowo. Distinguished Senator Iyabo Anisunlowo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and the principal officers. Distinguished colleagues, I appreciate the speech of Mr. President because it's very thought-provoking, is revealing, and also is historical. And browsing through after living here, I've read it several times, but the challenge I have personally is on page 6, where Mr. President said, the most compelling task before us as we move ahead and contemplate what our nation will be at the end of its second century is to lay a much stronger foundation for faster development by building a more inclusive and so on. What struck my mind there is this biblical saying that say, when a foundation is destroyed, what can the right do? And so it brought me to questioning myself that, yes, this is true. He wants us to rebuild the structure, but how do we do it? And I'm feeling that, in my view, I want to suggest the need to review our foundation and to seek, if need be, demolish those structures that divide us, impede our progress and development. For the one that is holistic, for our federation and those things that we need for our progress in this country, we know that we have failed ourselves. We know we have failed ourselves. We try, we struggle to do certain things right, but we have not been able to get them right. So I believe if we demolish those structures and then build on a sound foundation, where those coming after us will be able to continue building and to continue refurbishing what our elders from this conference will put in place. We also need to check ourselves sincerely.
Time up, Senator. Time up.
I just have an appeal that the National Assembly should cooperate with this confab so that all the things we do here will have legal backing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, can I make a general appeal? If we got the names wrong and you've been wrongly seated, it's probably better to let the secretary know so that people don't think I am skipping rows to call on people. We keep getting these notes that people's names have been wrongly put in alphabetical order. The note is from Mrs. I assume Aisha Aliu. Where? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So please, I will allow you to speak now. But if there are any others like this where we've put things wrongly, let the secretary know so we correct as early as possible. Mrs. Aisha Aliu, please.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, distinguished delegates, my name is Aisha Aliu. I'm a privileged elder statesman. I want to take a cue from Bishop Ajikaye. I share his views 100% because for me, there is no problem in our documents. The problem is our attitude, which I believe if we can change, we'll go a long way. I also want to comment on the submission of our elder statesman who said Nigeria is great. I believe Nigeria is great for both good and bad reasons. We can't be sitting here and believe all is well. I am a realist and I'm a grassroots person. I believe we have to accept that there is a problem before we can come up with a laudable solution. Mr. Chairman, there is a problem in Nigeria. When I got this appointment or selection or whatever it is called, I prayed to my God to lead me in both my actions and in my words. For whatever contribution I make here, may it be for the good of Nigeria and Nigerians. And anytime I come out of my house, I ask God to direct me to the right decisions. Mr. Chair, we all know that we have a faulty system. We are brilliant people.
We have brilliant documents, conference after conference. Where are they? If we can go back to them, I am sure that we are not going to give anything better. But I pray to God to direct our ways so that whatever we can come up with from this sitting, God will give us favor so that it will be implemented to the letter for the benefit of Nigeria and Nigerians. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the contribution. Next speaker, Alhaji Hassan Salihu, Anka.
Sir, much has been said on the content and context of the president's speech. I don't want to add much on his speech. Distinguished colleagues, I must add my voice, and indeed that of my constituency, the Trade Union Congress, Labour, to the proper placement of the presidential speech that ushered in this conference. I must commend the wisdom of the Mr. President in such a historical landmark, expression of a vision for our dear country, Nigeria. In the content and context, the speech provoked a thoughtfulness that could be translated into manifesting future for Nigerian greatness. Significantly, the speech has practically defined the path and the glory of this historical conference. This is a challenge to us, honorable colleagues and distinguished colleagues. Significantly, the speech has practically defined the path, the glory for this historical conference. This is a challenge to us, honorable colleagues. In spite of, in specific terms, the speech serves as a tentative response to such imaginary questions, such as, must we live together and remain one indivisible entity? If yes, how, in what forms? And in what structure and futures? What system of government do we subscribe to? How do we manage and share our commonwealth? In specific terms, the speech served as a tentative response to such imaginary questions, such as I've already mentioned down. As conference progresses, we shall make our implicit position known with the congent reasons on structures of Nigerian state, system of government, social and economic development as prerequisite for overall development. Our national predicament has been attributed to a lot of factors, which include but limited to indiscipline, corruption, insincerity, lack of unity, and etc. I want to emphasize that these malices do not emerge automatically or in isolation. Rather, they are manifestations of the collapse of our value system. We threw away our culture and ways of lives that had chartered the great potentials of our founding fathers. Employed to pilot our dear nations, everyone is himself and good for all of us.
Comrade, time up.
Okay, just a minute, sir. We must therefore regenerate ourselves by recourse to our religious and societal values. We need therefore sincere and wholehearted orientation and continued orientation that must be cut across the strata of our society. Our future in our hands, either for greater future or for stagnation and eventually retrogressive, God forbid, later. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. By the way, I need not add that people who have already spoken, if they have written documents they are allowed to make them available to the secretary to become part of our records and also to be sent to the committees dealing with them. Dr. Mrs. Virginia Anohu.
My Lord Chairman, great members of the Executive Secretariat, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will not take our time talking about and quoting the President. He has courageously and beautifully, in lucid language, called upon us and given us mandate. He has drawn a canvas of the problems bedeviling our country. He has equally called on us as a leader, he wants us to participate in recharting the fate of our country. In doing so, excuse me, may I sit down? May I sit down? Where's my glasses? Sorry. I just want to let you know that the President...
Just a minute, Madam.
Yes, sir.
Distinguished delegates, it is against our rule to stand in the highway while people are talking. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. The President's speech is in an engaging tone of sincerity and genuine concern for his nation, Nigeria, a nation that is in distress, makes a passionate call for patriotism. And in patriotism, he asks clearly, he defines an absence of selfishness and calls for selflessness. In it, he calls for commitment to national duty. He gives us 3 mandates. And the mandates are to build where necessary, to strengthen where necessary, to identify all the problems and profile solutions. And to you, my colleagues, he says we must carry this out. If we must do so and do it right, we must come together in peace and in love. Aside from what he said we must do, we look at the Tanzanian example, we look at the Tunisian example, and we ask, why is it that these areas, these people were working, why did they succeed in what they are doing? They came to the platform with discipline. They also came with interest in the country. I believe that...
Time up.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Chief Obi Anoliefo.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished delegates. I am Honorable Chief Obi Anoliefo, not Anoliefo. Yes, I represent the forum of former House of Reps members, but I come from the southeast, precisely Anambra State. Mr. Chairman, distinguished delegates, when my friend the general stood to talk, I thought he was going to apologize to the Nigerian state. But instead he said he had no apology. It is my impression that the problems of Nigeria today will be laid on the doorstep of the military. For each time we marched 2 steps forward, they pull us 3, 4, 5 steps backward. I remember that in 1975, the parity ratio between the dollar and the naira was 60 kobo to the dollar, 1 naira 20 to the pound sterling. From that date onward up till today, we know where we are. There are 3 legs in governance in Nigeria: executive, legislature, and the judiciary. Each time the military struck, the legislature is the whipping child. Oh yes, the executive could be set aside, but when the storm settles, the executive, one way or the other, is brought back. At least they receive their perquisites and sit as National Council of State members. The same, the judiciary. Lawyers might, for a while, refuse to go to the courts and tribunals under the military. But before long, they go back. The legislature is left in the lurch. It has happened all through the years. 1983, they were sacked. Nobody remembers them. Time will come in the life of every nation when they will rise and say no to injustice that is done to any one man, and say injustice done to any one Nigerian is injustice done to all Nigerians. And until that is done, no Nigerian will be prepared to die for Nigeria. But I have a dream. I have a dream like Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream. I see a country, Nigeria, where corruption is punished and punished roundly. I see a country where indigenous and settlers, that dichotomy will die. I see a country where capital and recurring budgets will be realigned in such a way that capital budgets will have the upper hand, so that there should be development and there should be employment for our youths. I have a dream where the people of this country in unison will rise and say, we are Nigerians, and Nigerians we will continue to be. Thank you. Mr. President has given us a Marshall Plan. Let us develop it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Anya O. Anya.
Honorable Chairman, fellow distinguished delegates, I'm Anya O. Anya. I hold the officer of the Order of the Federal Republic, and I also hold the Nigerian National Order of Merit. I owe this country a lot for what it has done for me. And that debt of service I've also tried to discharge. In the last 3 years, I found myself in the Lemu Committee, the post-election violence. I found myself in the Belgore Committee. And I found myself in the Okoromu Committee, and I'm here. Now, one lesson that came out of all these exposures is that there is no part of this country that does not have its peculiar problems. And there is no part that can solve its problems to the exclusion of the others. The challenges in the north are not northern problems, they are Nigerian problems. But I think what we need is to be more honest and less, and to a large extent, stop grandstanding, especially our elders. Now, I want to anchor my comments on two statements from the president's speech. He has asked us to harness our people's thoughts, views, and recommendations for a stronger, more united, peaceful and politically stable Nigeria, forged on the broadest possible national consensus. He has also asked us to turn our diversity and plurality to unique national resources for strength and greatness. Against the background of those two statements, I think I would like to turn our attention to the three main challenges facing our country: the challenge of development, the challenge of unity, and the challenge of values. If we take the challenge of development, three important problems cannot escape our attention. The first problem is the high unemployment rate, especially among our youth. The second is the high level of poverty. And the third is the wide gap between those who have and those who do not have. What it tells us is that our development process has been on the wrong footing. First and foremost, education has not produced the kind of people that can actually add value. Because at the end of the day, the economy runs on the productivity and production of its citizens. What is more, we have failed to recruit science, technology, and engineering into the development process. The result is that we have not tried out the creative and innovative ways that we need to develop our country. Indeed, when people say we were on the same footing in 1964 with the countries of Asia, it is not actually true. What is true, and I have the statistics, we were ahead of Malaysia, we were ahead of Korea, we were ahead of, and of course nobody was talking about Indonesia. Every one of them has pulled ahead of us, and it is because we have not paid attention. Let us look at the challenge of values. People talk about trust. People talk about corruption. But as a biologist, it is true that you can change the behavior of people, which means you can change values. The challenge is to get the right of incentives, to get appropriate rewards, and to get the right kind of punishment for those who step out of the line. We have not done any of those, and yet it is within our capacity, and this nation, as people have said, has been endowed. This country has the intellectual capacity, and this country has all it takes to be where we ought to be. But it starts with the leadership